I updated a program, and I don't have all the info. Okay, I think I'm live. Okay, well, I'm alive, I think. But the stream is now live. Checking my notes here that Brendan talked me through, and I still don't have a clue what I'm doing. We will see how this turns out, whether it's for the good or the bad or the in-between. I'm still learning this stuff. I'm old, as if you couldn't tell, and things are so convoluted and complicated. I knew it was one of those words. That it gets to be a bit much. At one time, now it's a difference between how things have advanced and how my mind has deteriorated. And, when you get older, you just can't quite do the same things you used to be able to do. Because I used to be able to go, oh, okay, that, get the PC version. Is that right? The ones that, the consumer can use version. But nowadays things have it seems complicated. If it's not already preset to, push a button and go, then I'm lost. So we'll see how this works. Hello, welcome to another episode of Tea and Talk Time. I realized in the last one that I did that it was called A Shattered Soul, but I never talked about what a shattered soul means. And I'm not sure I really have a firm grasp on what it does mean, but I printed out, I did a Google search, and this comes out of Urban Dictionary under the definition of broken soul, which is part of and can lead to a shattered soul. So let me just share what this says. An emotionally / mentally unstable, in parentheses, or less stable than normal, in parentheses, person due to life challenges, recent taxing events, or the actions / behaviors of another person. This person may feel at the point of just crawling into a corner, breaking down and crying due to sentiments of inadequacies, feebleness, and other worthlessness. In extreme cases, thoughts of suicide or other forms of violence might arise for the purpose to, simply put it, just end it. And such a person is often secluded, excessively sensitive, and or too humble, because the person might feel unworthy of any aid or love from anyone, including those who want to help and or love. And while a soul cannot literally be broken, the person's ego may be conflicted to the point where a person no longer feels like the same person. The person may be going through the motions. That phrase is very apropos daily, and may even have trouble enjoying favorite pastimes. A person who self-describes as a broken soul or a shattered soul can get better, but time away from what is causing the person anguish or psychological help is usually needed. So that refers back to what I said last time. Mental health is so needed, especially in cases of abuse, any kind of abuse. The more severe the abuse, the more severe the damage, the more long-lasting the effects. Now, let it be known, I'm expressing my own personal views based on my life experiences, what I've gone through, and what help I've gotten, and my perceptions of all of that. So I'm sharing in the hopes that if you're having any of these types of feelings or emotions or whatever, you're not alone. So you're not crazy. The stigma of any kind of mental disease or illness or disorder is, you're crazy. We've got to get past that. As I said last time, we do things for our own physical health. We know we shouldn't have too much sugar. We know we shouldn't eat too much bread stuff. We know not to put a hand in a fire. I mean, most of us know that. We try to teach our kids that. The value, the worth, the consciousness of taking care of ourselves physically, some of it is just an automatic. It's just an automatic. If I do this, it's going to hurt. So we don't do that. If I take vitamins, it's going to assist my body in doing what it needs to do to refresh and to, have a healthier life. We do certain things in this way to be of benefit to ourselves. But when it comes to mental health, we think that's that's a taboo, that's a curse, that's a negative thing, when it's not. Many years ago, probably, it's 30 plus years ago, I went through a separation that was looking like it was going to be a divorce, and at the time I wish it would have, but then I wouldn't have had my third kid, so there's all kinds of layers to that. But at that time, my mom wanted me to go see someone to deal with the stress, the aggravation, the pain, the emotions. It was a very wise suggestion on my mom's part. Probably the most loving thing she ever did for me. But I took it as an offense. I took it as, okay, there's something wrong with me. And so I refused. I mentally just went, no. There's nothing wrong with me. But there was. And it's only in recent years that I am seeing how much wrong there was with me. And within the last 2 months, I'm discovering a lot of the effects of childhood trauma that has affected me in ways that I did not realize. So I'm starting to deal with that now. Just like anything, there's many levels to it. On surface levels, I adjusted, I dealt with it, I functioned, I understood why I did things a certain way, and knew it related to what happened to me as a young child. But there's so much more to it. It's so much deeper than that. It's just like, when you go to step in a puddle, you don't know how deep it is. Even when you can see the bottom, it can be distorted. It can be a false perception of how deep it is. And you step into it and you either, your toe gets submerged or it goes up to your knee. Seeing a counselor, seeing a psychologist, because the psychiatrist is the one that does the prescriptions, the psychologist is the one that does the counseling. And there's various other professions in there. But anyway, seeing somebody helps you identify things where you need some help, And there's nothing wrong with realizing you need some help. I could have benefited a long time ago from this type of stuff. I could have been a much healthier person. And it's not even necessarily being healthier, but being able to clearly perceive and react and function, and therefore I have a cat. Meet the cat. Yes, Boots. She comes, and then she sits down for a few minutes, and then she goes over here and looks out the window, and then she comes back to my lap, and then she goes that way, and then she comes back. What? Do you need counseling too? Okay. She's going to sit a while. This is Boots. Did I say that already? So anyway, I'm learning the value of counseling, and I'm recognizing more and more when you just function, you're going through the motions, like that paper said. And I can remember most of my life I've gone through the motions because I didn't have a clue. As a young child, I don't remember a lot of experience except for, maybe really traumatic or highly exciting or, whatever. And I often wondered how people can remember almost back to consciousness, Some people, and I believe them, can even remember being born. But percentage-wise, that's a very small amount. I went through the motions because there was nothing going on in my life that I really wanted to remember as a child. I grew up in an alcoholic family. Well, we weren't all alcoholics. My dad was an alcoholic, and he was a mean alcoholic. When he'd been drinking, he got really mean with my mom. My mom was raised by a dysfunctional family, an abusive father and mother. So she had a lot of short-temperedness. Function breeds dysfunction. If you have two parents who are dysfunctional, those dysfunctional people are not teaching you the quote normal way to do things, react, be, whatever. And this is where community, family, church, the social structures help fill in the gaps when there's a situation like that. And that helps the individual develop in a better way. Well, as we all know, our community, our churches, our society has really broken down. I have theories on why, but we won't get into that. So, without those support systems, you're left to figure things out on your own. You sink or swim. And if all you're doing is treading water, you're not learning the different strokes. You're not learning how to look around and find a landmass and start swimming in that direction. You're not given the tools you need to have a better life. So I just kind of wandered around with mine and done the best I could with what I had, which is what most people do. But it could have been so much better. But then I wouldn't have learned the things that I've learned, and I wouldn't be able to share now what I'm learning now. Everything happens for a reason. Everything, everything is there as a lesson. And if things keep repeating in your life, you haven't learned the lesson. Once you learn the lesson, you can move on, and the lesson shifts and changes and gets better and less intense. So that's another whole philosophical, spiritual discussion that I've touched on in other sharings. Ooh, I've got a viewer. Hello. I've got 2 people in the chat room. Hello, 2 people in the chat room. I'm really bad about noticing things like that. And why I glanced over at this time, I don't know. Hey, back at you. And I don't understand what the other one is saying. So anyway, in the last episode, I shared a meditation that came to me, and it developed as I was writing it out, to address the wounded child within. And what happens is that child who was abused in all the many forms that abuse can present itself is never validated, is never nurtured, is never acknowledged, is never told that that's not how it should be, that this was wrong, that your feelings of aloneness and anger and fear and, whatever the child was feeling is valid and important. And we must recognize feelings like that within people. So sometimes when you see somebody doing some really crappy things, yes, they're really crappy things and they should be, that should be addressed. But compassion comes in when you recognize, man, something terrible happened to that person. That's sympathy. That's understanding. And if you want that, there goes the cat here. And if you want that in your life, it's a 2-way street. More cat here. Anyway, addressing the child within is a way for that child to vocalize. And there was an exercise that my counselor wanted me to do, and it was to address who was, whatever the example was, address that person and confront them and say, you made me feel this, you made me feel that. And I couldn't do it because of past exercises and counseling and stuff. I knew that person did the best they could with what they had because they had their own wounded child within. So I was thinking of this, and that's how I came up with the meditation that I shared last time. Because it was like, no, I would much rather reach out and take the hand of that wounded child. And actually the image actually came into my head. That's what I would rather do, is take the hand of that wounded child. And together we'll figure this out, and we'll comfort each other and resolve issues and nurture them, give them a hug. And at the same time giving ourselves a hug. So that's what I did. I started writing it out, and it just expanded and kept going. And I think it's a pretty good meditation. And even if you don't physically sit with that person, mentally you can do this. There's a lot of stuff that our mind can do that we just don't give it credit for. But when I got done doing that, I felt lighter afterwards. I felt a sense of peace afterwards. So, like I said in the last video, I never explained what a shattered soul is. Now, one of the explanations or definitions that my counselor told me, I just saw her a couple of days ago, and I shared the meditation. She said, yes, that's a good meditation. She was rather surprised that I came up with that, but yet not. Okay, brain just went away. Fibromyalgia, fibro fog, which is the brain not coming and going. You know, that's fun to live with. That's my chronic disorder. That's why I see a counselor, is to deal with the stresses that being chronic. Oh, someone said, hello, Nana. Hello. I can't see the whole thing. I'm still learning all the technical parts of this. Anyway, back to what I was saying. She gave a thumbs up on the meditation, and you know, I told her that I never really got into the shattered soul part of it. You know, that's the deep stuff. And I'm a little nervous because we're going in that direction. And I've had to wait a whole day before I could talk about anything. But she said, you know, the trauma or whatever the situation was, whether it's physical, mental, emotional, you know, and it can happen at any time. It's not just when you're a kid, but, you know, a lot of stuff happens when you're a kid. How she described it, if I'm getting this correct, the spirit separates from the soul, and it makes an opening for a tear to happen. And when that tear happens, there's a fragmentation going on. And depending on how severe everything is, a shattered soul is one. I guess there's degrees of it. It can either be just like the cobweb when a windshield gets hit with a stone and, you know, it spiders out, to actually shattering the whole thing. In my brief research of, you know, what is a shattered soul, a spiritual-like person said that's when that happens, that's why there's ghosts around, because that's a fragment of their soul it's lost. You know, it's just there. It's repeating. It can just be repeating the trauma of something that happened. In ghost hunting terms, that's residual. That means there's no intelligence behind it. It's a loop. It's a repeat. Because that, whatever the experience was so traumatic that it imprinted to the point where other people could see it at times. So there's so much to the psyche, there's so much to the spirit and soul, and just the physical, mental thing that our brain is. When you realize that everything is impulses, you know, stuff firing, and then you're around other electronic devices that are firing. How much is that distorting our own physique? How much is that influencing what we're seeing, thinking, doing? There's a whole philosophical range of stuff that I'm fascinated with and would like to know more. So anyway, back to a shattered soul. That's what a shattered soul is it's been damaged. The spirit never dies. The spirit doesn't get damaged. But your soul can. This is what I've seen in a little bit that I've done and what my counselor said. So the soul is what needs to be fixed. And that's something that my counselor said we're going to be working on. So the more I thought about that after the counseling session, I'm getting a little anxious about it, because I don't know what we're going to find, because, you know, I don't remember most of my childhood. But I've had long-lasting effects from stuff that happened in my childhood. I remember the fighting and the arguing, and that's really about it. So there had to have been more for me to react and sustain such damage as I did. Now, I talked to my older sister about this, and I asked her, I said, this is what I've learned, and I don't know what all she went through. She's 4 years older than me, so she's the oldest. She's 4 years older than me, so she was going through stuff before I even appeared on the scene. Now, when I appeared on the scene, I was born with this big old knot on my forehead, a hematoma, that had the bloody red center to it. And so when I heard my mom say I was the ugliest child she'd ever seen, I didn't know about that. So, you know, the child in me is going, what? And I would imagine, with her own dysfunction and having this visual thing, that just reinforced a lack of nurturing for me. And I sensed it and knew it to some degree. And kids are very perceptive. They know when stuff's going on. They don't have words for it. They don't have understanding for it. But they know something's going on. So if you are trying to hide stuff, if you are doing, doing things behind the scenes to make things better, that child doesn't know what's going on, but it knows something is going on. And children usually think it was something they did. They immediately put it back on themselves. So please keep your kids informed on a degree that they can understand. You don't have to go into all the complexities of it. Just saying, wow, we did something really screwy and we're trying to fix it. So the child knows that, oh, okay, you did something screwy. It wasn't me. And they'll go, okay. And if you give them a way to help in the situation, that empowers them. That makes them part of it instead of being secluded and pushed to the outside. That's my own feelings. That's my own perceptions. So hopefully we'll get better about stuff. Yes, you shouldn't really have, knockdown, drag-out fights in front of your kids, but they hear you. They pick up on the tension. So you really need to help them understand what's going on, and in the process, not make it personal on them. I sidetrack a lot. So the main purpose of this is to, let you know that my counselor did like the meditation that I came up with last time. That, a shattered soul is more than someone who, had a bad experience or whatever. I mean, this is stuff that goes deep. And as I learn more, I'll share it. Because that's how A, I become healthy, and B, sharing my wisdom and experiences hopefully can help somebody else. So that's really all I wanted to talk about. There's 1, 2, 3 peoples in the chat. Someone said, good morning, Nana. Good morning to you. El Gringo, I'm not quite sure what you said when you came on. But hey, hello, thanks for stopping by. I appreciate that. I'm still, I used to just record videos and put it out there. That's how Tea and Talk Time started. But recently, because of Twitch, I've gotten hooked on Critical Role, and they're on Twitch. So, and then I realized my subscription gave me a website, and went, it's just sitting there doing nothing. Let's see what we can come up with. So this is only the 3rd time I've done any streaming. So this is a whole new avenue for me. I'm used to just talking to nobody, and hoping somebody would come across the thing and get something out of it. So now there is a chance, as example of the 3 who stopped by here, to actually interact, and that's a whole new scenario for me. I used to be on the radio. I was a part-time DJ, a small market and a major market station. Once a week, filling in for vacation people. So I'm used to talking into a microphone and not seeing people. Before that, I've done a lot of community theater, so it all kind of layers for me. So once I got past the sound of my own voice, that's, you ever play back a recording of yourself or see yourself on a video or, something like that? It's like, do I really sound like that? Kind of, sort of, yes, but without the resonance, But, so when I first started doing this, my grandson helped me set everything up. And he was on with me on the very first episode, So that kind of eased me into the whole situation. But there was, like I said, I'm used to talking in a microphone without seeing anybody else. So this is different. So I apologize if I don't talk to people right away or if I don't notice, because I watch. Now, Buckeye Breeze is my grandson who helped me with all this. And this was like 4 or 5 years ago. Things have evolved a lot since then. And it's been a year since I recorded anything, I believe. So we set up a thing and we recorded here I am again, here we are. And there was one setting on one of the things that we use that didn't record. I was so disappointed. I'm hoping I could get Buckeye Breeze here again, because he's getting ready to go off to his 3rd year of college. He's got an associate now. He's going after bachelor's. Is that what comes next? I always get confused. Anyway, I hope to have him on again and talk about college and all the stuff that he's going through. But he helped me set everything up. I did a stupid thing right before I went to record now. I downloaded an update to a program. And now I don't know if the settings are all what they should be. So I definitely need to touch base with Buckeye and make sure everything's kosher. And the thing I was getting to was he streams. He does where he's playing a game and he shares what he's doing, and he talks during the whole thing. The versatility of this kid. He's got a wonderful speaking voice. He's got a great mind. I've seen essays and stuff that he's written, and he's just so good. But he has like 3 monitors that he checks as he's doing things, and he knows what's going on here and what's going on there. And I can look here, but to take the second to go over here and check. And like I said, this should be up higher. I'll mess with that later. So I think I said everything that I meant to say for this. I appreciate those who have stopped by. I'm going to try to be more often, and we can really get a dialogue going. Right now I feel mental... I've got to come up with a new term. Mental health. We got to find a better way to say it. One of the other things that I was going to mention was that our mental health we have progressed so much in what we know and how we do things, but we have forgotten about the health checks, the mental health checks. We have forgotten about those who need more than just once a week, twice a week, whatever. We had mental health institutions, the state, what were they called? Now I can't remember what they were called. The sanatoriums and sanitarians, and I know they mean two separate things, but we used to send people off to the asylum when really they just needed some good counseling, where really they had an actual physical disease that prevented them from acting normally like everybody else does. Those places became snake pits because people didn't know, and so they didn't treat them right, and they just left them to their own devices. And it was, the people who had to, the families who had to give these people up, it was painful for them, but they didn't know how to deal with whatever the situation was. So rightfully and gratefully, a lot of, those places were torn down. Whether they were physically or not, it doesn't matter, but it finally became an awareness issue, and what was going on in these places and the abuses that was happening, and that was destroyed is the best word I can come up with right now. But unfortunately, there still is a need for people to have a place to go to, for people to be referred to institutions, such a bad word, hospitals, retreats, maybe retreat is a better word, once someone is diagnosed with something. We need to bring this back up to the forefront. We took care of the nasties for the most part. We won't talk about nursing homes and stuff, because some of them are really, really bad. And I say some, not all of them. Some of them are really, really bad. Wherever there is anything, abuse is going to happen, and we all have to be vigilant about making sure, finding it and getting rid of the abuse. It's like I say with anything, God will take, for instance, the internet. It can be used for good, and it can be used for bad. So we have to be on the alert for the bad so that the good can survive and do good. And that's true of anything. Any business, any institution, anything. So we need to get rid of the stigma of what mental health is. We need to be more proactive in what we say and do, and realize our words are powerful. They can heal or hurt. Recent incidences that have happened, that have been highlighted over this past weekend, in at least one of them, the mental health situation of the main perpetrator is a case in point. We need to address issues that are going on. So, it's a big old discussion. So I will touch base more often, and as I learn things and my perception shifts, I'll share what I can when I can, and we'll take it from there. So I will say goodbye for now. Thank you for stopping by. Thank you for listening to my ramblings. And until the next time we get together, take care and God bless.